All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, you already know what time it is, and right here, right now, on the radio station Airwaves Live, we have the iconic mystic of Digital Underground. She also is known as the DU Goddess, and she is here live on the line. How are you doing this evening?
Greetings. I am doing wonderfully. I am blessed and I am gratitude. How are you?
I gotta say, best as we can possibly be down here in Canada, just dealing with that terrible Canadian winter. I gotta say, I'm definitely jealous that you're way out there in California, because I really wish we could trade this snow for some palm trees.
I know, but I've been out there in the winter in Regina, in Saskatchewan, where it was freezing temperatures, and I learned so much about it. I'm not sure I had experienced that kind of cold before.
I gotta say, I have not been to Saskatchewan myself. I'm out here in Ontario, but I have heard some absolute horror stories just about the winter in Saskatchewan. So it definitely makes me feel a little bit better being able to be here in Ontario and not deal with that.
Indeed.
But Mystic, I know you're a very busy individual, so I'm going to dive right into this interview. But I got to take you back to the early '90s, where you actually began taking part in MC battles in the Bay Area. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners just the story behind these rap battle days, and of course, what was it like being able to just go against these fellow MCs?
Yeah, so I don't know where this is coming from. I've never been a super battle MC. I've been a cypher MC. I definitely have, especially when I was a teenager and I was coming up and trying to claim my space as a master of ceremony, but also as a woman in hip hop at the time, where there wasn't a lot of representation for that. It's like if you wanted to get down, we could get down. But the reason that I say cipher is because it's all about us being able to sharpen our blades and our skills. I came up with hieroglyphics. That's who I learned to freestyle with, and a lot of people will say, I'm like, where did we first meet? Where did you first see me? And they're like, I walked into this park, or I walked into this club, and you were in the middle of the cipher just spitting. Now, what I will say really quickly, though, is that particularly male MCs who have fragile egos, at that time, when I was really just spitting, they might have taken it as a battle. But for me, it was always about sharpening our swords.
And I gotta say as well, there definitely is a lot of individuals out there that do get like that. But I can definitely say you are a phenomenal MC, so I can only imagine what it would actually, how some of these individuals felt by actually like losing to such a phenomenal artist. Because when Mystic brings the bars, she has bars. That's all I gotta say.
But here, you lose when you start talking about women and start talking about our bodies and start calling women out of their names. You've lost with me, because I'm going to check you on some straight MC type of level, and I'm going to call you out, because MCs are creative anyway. You know, the majority of MCs who are talking about all the women they don't have them anyway. So, you know, look, I'm much more grown now, but I will still say something if I need to.
And also as well, in '96, you had the opportunity to actually work alongside the Conscious Daughters, where you actually did vocals on multiple songs for their album Gamers. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about those studio sessions, and of course, what was it like just being in the studio working with those two amazingly talented ladies?
Absolutely. Rest in peace to Carol Special One Smith, and much love to my sister, Carla CMG. I met them, and I can put it in a time context because I wasn't 21 yet, because CMG threw me my 21st surprise birthday party. But at that time in the Bay Area, there was just so much unity, and there was so much that was thriving, whether people thought you were doing street music or people thought that you were doing kind of hip-hop. We didn't even have all those categories necessarily back then. But I met them, and they took me under their wing. And they never attempted to change who I am or how I represented. Same thing with Sugar T and being around the clique. You know, everybody just supported me as kind of my goddess, 1 foot in the street, 1 foot in the ethereal type artist. And so working with the Conscious Daughters, like when we did the freestyle session where we had hella MCs from across the the Bay Area. It was so dope. There were these long lines in the studio in San Francisco. We were all lined up, and we literally went back to back. You would go and spit. It wasn't like one person walked into a booth. You spit and you stepped away from the mic. Next person stepped up, you spit and stepped away from the mic. And, you know, we had a lot of different sessions, and that stuff is wonderful. But the most brilliant part that came out of that was sisterhood. And we had a sisterhood. We called ourselves the Kindred. It was me, the Conscious Daughters, Goldie, rest in peace to Goldie. It was Sugar Baby Doll. And so we were the Kindred, and to have that kind of sisterhood where when we rolled out, we would be like 30, 35 women deep, and have that kind of sisterhood in hip-hop is still something that's beautiful to me.
And I got to say as well, definitely just rest in paradise to Special One. Such a phenomenal duo as well. Like, I still can't believe she's gone. When you put on those albums, they still resonate today within hip-hop. So it's just extraordinary. Just to listen to those albums.
They do, and she was, you know, Carol was and is such a bright spirit. She's the first person I lost who became an ancestor where I decided to buy something living to honor her. And I told everybody in the church I had written a poem, and I got up there and did the poem for her. You know, I was in tears. I don't know how eloquent I sounded. And I talked about how I bought this flower, and the interesting thing is it's still here. It's in the yard. I brought it back to Oakland from LA with me, and every once in a while it blooms, and I still feel her presence, and I hear her. She used to call me Mr. Cow. Mr. Cow! And so I still hear her saying that, and she is still here like every ancestor. Their energy is everywhere.
And also, as well, I read between 97 and 99, you actually toured the world with Digital Underground. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners just a story behind that tour, and of course, what was one of your most fondest memories you shared on that tour? Because I can only imagine just going from city to city with one of the biggest groups on the West Coast.
You love my family and my crew. It felt like the world to me, but we toured back and forth across the United States at that time. And it was me and 11 dudes, and we all spit, and we all would end up singing a lot. And it was just like this amazing time to be out and to be in the middle of the country. And I think part of the power of hip-hop as a culture is that it brings us together. And when you're able to tour and you're able to move about, it connects you with people. And so there was no social media. There was nothing. So we had a wild, crazy time out there. And some of the things that happened will only stay in the minds of us who were there, the people in those cities and those of us who were on tour. But, you know, I always talk about, and I think you had Money B on as well, right? We would have these, like, session type of things in hotels that had pianos, and Shock would get on the piano and play, and we would all freestyle. And there's actually videos that exist where you can see that wasn't just my experience and my iteration of Digital Underground, because there's different iterations. But, you know, that was happening when Pac was alive and Digital was touring. It was always the case before we lost our brother and mentor. And then another funny story from tour, I think we were in Lexington, Kentucky, of all places, and I got a whole squad of women from that town to help me raid the motel kitchen, and I stole their pickles and some of their other food, and then we all ran through the hall. Joys of, you know, early 20-something on the road.
And also as well, in the year 1998, you were actually featured on Digital Underground's album, Who Got the Gravy, on the song April Showers. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about that collaboration. And of course, what was it like just working alongside the late, great Shock G?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was being brought into Digital prior to 96. The first thing I ever recorded with Shock G was actually, and I had no interest in singing at the time, but was a cover of Gloomy Sunday that he produced. And so I was already on my way in, but I got in, recording April Showers. A digital session could be quite exciting, as I'm sure people can imagine, with lots of people, a kind of controlled chaos, probably anything that you could want to imbibe, being in the studio. But I vividly remember on that doing, I want to go outside, I want to do it in the rain. And Shaq started harmonizing with me, and different people started harmonizing, and it was beautiful, right? And Shaq went to New York and recorded with KRS-One and Big Pun, rest in peace to Big Pun, and came back, and he had this lyric from KRS-One, Mystic, you got the lyrics. When the album come out, everybody has to hear it. And I was like, oh, my God, KRS-One shouted me out. Working with Shaq, he was a master musician. And something about the way that digital music was and is created is if your role is to breathe on the track, you breathe on the track. If your role is to do ad-libs, you do ad-libs. If your role is to spit, then you spit. If your role is to sing, you sing. And so you never kind of know what would happen, but Shaq is a fundamental part of the reason, along with the Angel, who's a mentor, and she's a producer and scores films and also is her own artist. Both of them are a fundamental part of the reason that I ever stepped into singing and understood that I could widen my box. I was so dedicated to being an MC. It's not like we hear here, that we hear now. And I mean, look, you have Canada's own Drake, that goes back and forth between rhyming and singing, and that's what everybody does. But back in the 90s, that's not what we were doing. People have to think about what the response was to people like PM Dawn. Although people like his teachers was singing, Queen Latifah was singing, and many others. So, sorry, I give long answers.
Hey, it's all good. I'd much rather long answers than 2-word answers. I've definitely experienced that before, so I definitely like being able just to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And before we move off the topic of the Digital Underground days, the one thing I have to ask is, what was one of your most fondest memories of Shock G? Because unfortunately, if someone listens to this interview 10, 15 years from now, they might just actually be learning about the man, Shock G himself.
Yeah. And I want to make a slight correction. It's not that there was a time when digital still exists. I'm still a member of digital. And Shock, what a lot of people don't know about Gregory Shock G Jacobs is that he was a beautiful, kind, compassionate heart. He made everybody feel like they were important and loved, even if he just met you for 5 minutes. And part of what we've continued to honor him and his compassionate heart and his commitment to people who have less and our unhoused community members and people who are in need. It's like he would give people money, he would get them hotel rooms, he would, get them a meal, he would give them shoes. And so, we continue to serve the unhoused community. I mean, I think in many ways our crew and our family is still processing, the kind of the loss of someone that we love and him becoming an ancestor. But I think what people really should know, too, is that digital is often presented as this really awesome, beautiful party group, right? And let's have a wild time and throw popcorn and do champagne and all those things. But people have to understand that at the kind of base and the core of Digital Underground and of Shock is that we are also revolutionaries. It's not at odds that myself and Pac came through and up through Digital Underground. Mun is a Panther baby. Clee is a Panther baby. Their parents were in the Black Panthers. We were mentored, those of us who are not the children of Black Panthers, by those people's parents. And thank goodness for those Black Panthers who are still alive, still breathing, and still guiding us. So I think it's important that people understand that, Shock was a serious musician, an amazing piano player, and that it was a revolutionary thing to say, look, we can party and have a good time, and also that is revolutionary. Love and joy is revolutionary.
And also, as well, June 19th of 2021, you actually released your phenomenal debut album titled Cuts for Luck and Scars for Freedom. I was wondering if you could actually tell our listeners a story behind this amazing album. And of course, did you ever think this album would actually grow to what it actually is today? Because it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, original release date was, and then thank you. Original release date was the date you gave, but it actually got released on July 31st, 2001. And, you know, Cuts for Luck and Scars for Freedom is such a powerful thing that it continues to resonate with younger folks and with folks who are in different phases of their healing journeys. What that album captures is me in my mid-20s being a broken, traumatized Black girl looking for the love, believing in love in the world and light in the world, but also still like losing people to the streets and to violence and trying to figure out how do I love myself and love a man and how do I, you know, kind of do all these things. And so, you know, I had no idea when we recorded the album. I had this belief that we are far more connected with each other across, you know, man-made established borders and across cultures. But I had no idea that by being vulnerable and putting my life out, my loss, my pain, my joy, my hope, that it would resonate with so many people around the world who also had experienced trauma, but for young folks just trying to figure out who we are. Look, this life, the journey of life is not necessarily the easiest thing, and that's not dependent on where we live geographically. It's not even dependent on our socioeconomic status. You can have tons of money and have a totally awful life. And you can have very, very little financial resources, but grow up with a lot of love and a lot of power and a lot of understanding and culture. So, yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea I was going to be like on TV. I had no idea I would get nominated for a Grammy or a BET award or any of those things. And that, to me, is the beauty of hip-hop, though. I come from the underground. I didn't start in the underground and say, I am going to make records one day so that I can get nominated for awards and I can do these things. I had something to say. And I needed to. It is my craft. Our culture is so amazing, and the culture was still being developed at that time. I mean, culture is always being developed. So, yeah, I had no idea what the response would be, and like, it's beautiful that there are still teenagers who are discovering that album. Right? I wish that the world was different, and that, you know, however people identify, but I'm just speaking as a woman, I wish that girls were no longer being raped. I wish that police were no longer killing people in our communities. I wish that we had solved the issues of poverty. I wish that we had more peace. I wish that we had shifted this world to a more just paradigm and we had no more wars in the world. I wish that cats weren't still selling dope. I wish that children didn't feel like they need to carry guns because they're so scared, right? I wish that was not relevant in 2022. And if people listen to this in 30, 40, 50 years, from the depths of my heart, I hope it's not true. But, yeah, Cuts for Luck and Scars for Freedom is still there. But now we have the new album, and I'm a healed Black woman and not a broken Black girl.
And also, as well, the one thing I've always wondered, because I did remember as well that this album actually kind of got re-released by DreamWorks in 2003, and with I also noticed as well that there was like 5 or 6 new songs on this album in 2003 that was actually produced by Kanye West. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that re-release, and of course, what was it like just being able to work alongside a then very young Kanye West?
Yeah, absolutely. So the album, the re-release was called Cuts for Luck and Scars for Freedom, Learning to Breathe, because I love long titles, right? So much to say. It was only really released in Japan, right? So people can find a Japan version. You might have to pay a lot for it, but the cover is different. And I have on this like yellow top, and I'm on a roof, and there's pieces of paper flying through the sky, and it looks really beautiful. But Kanye produced 2 songs on that. One was with Donnell Jones, and one was with myself and Mos Def. And at the time, when I was originally moving to it with a young Kanye, Through the Wire was not out yet. We met at DreamWorks. My A&R left us in the room alone. Kanye rapped, Jesus walks to me on his knees. And as he was going through pieces of music, I heard something that was really musical, and he kind of skipped over it, and I said, wait, go back. What is that? And he said, that's the style I'm working on, and I haven't perfected yet. And I said, that's what I want right there. And so it was this kind of, what he was developing at the time was having live musicians come in, having them play, sampling them, and then creating the beat out of it. You can hear it in things like Talib Kweli's Get By. And so, yeah, I mean, he was great in the studio. I didn't think he was cocky. I had been told he was, but he was quite humble at that time. And this is also when his mother was still alive. He came to the studio to play me Through the Wire with his mouth wired shut before it had been mixed and before it had been released. And I told him, baby, please don't break the wires in your mouth. Please don't back with the studio. So I had a great experience working with him back then. And then the other 2 songs were done with Darren Henson and Keith Pelzer from A Touch of Jazz out in Philly, folks who had worked on Jill Scott stuff and Music Soul Child and a bunch of other folks. And so that also came out, we did like 2 songs together, and that was really beautiful. And I think that they were dope additions to the album, but it didn't, DreamWorks was starting to fold. And what I thought was my release being held, that re-release being held, I think in hindsight was really the president, one of the Austin brothers, Michael and Mo Austin. I think that was them actually protecting me and not throwing my album out into the world. But the beautiful thing about it is I fought to get out of that deal with DreamWorks, and DreamWorks took what they wanted, which were those new songs. Good Vibes took a couple like crew songs with Spontaneous and Big Dro. But everybody left me the masters to cut Sherlock and Scars for Freedom. But I didn't know that for 20 years. So here we are. And that's my Kanye re-release story.
And also, as well, aside from being an amazing MC, you also currently serve as a Bay Area coordinator for the Hip Hop Caucus organization. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this nonprofit, and of course, how can our listeners get more involved with what you guys currently got going on over at this amazing organization today?
Yeah, I'm actually not. Something probably needs to be updated somewhere. I am no longer one of the advisors for Hip Hop Caucus, but I did go on from being like a Bay Area advisor to actually overseeing their films division, and was there for some time helping to work on a documentary as well as a comedy special, if you can imagine that, about the climate crisis, which is also, it's not just the climate crisis, that's connected to race. And not climate justice is racial justice, and so I was able to volunteer with them for about 14 years. We're still connected, but I don't work there, and I'm no longer the advisor. But Hip Hop Caucus is a nonpartisan organization that engages those of us in the hip hop culture around civic engagement to try to really engage us around the climate crisis, around economic justice, racial justice. I've worked with them to try to shut down Guantanamo Bay. I've worked with them to generally try to stop wars. I've worked with them to get climate and energy policies passed in California. So they're an amazing organization. If people look up Hip Hop Caucus, which is different than Hip Hop Change, for Change, which is here in the Bay Area. But if people look up Hip Hop Caucus, it's an amazing nonprofit organization that is also about building institutions. Very often we're engaged in activism and change and trying to make sure that our voices are heard as people of color, Black, brown, indigenous, whatever the different identities of that are anywhere in the world, trying to make sure that our voices are included. Some of the most impacted parts of the world when it comes to climate justice are actually filled with beautiful, beautiful indigenous and Black and brown and poor folks. And we need to be involved in the solutions and the development of policy. So that's the Hip Hop Caucus. Shout out to Reverend Lennox Yearwood, who started the Hip Hop Caucus, as well as Liz and everybody who's working over there. Nothing but love, even though I'm no longer there.
And also as well, jumping ahead in the timeline to actually this year, August 26th to be exact, you actually released the amazing 14-track album titled Dreaming in Cursive, The Girl Who Loves Sparklers. I was wondering if you could actually tell us a bit more about this most recently released album, and of course, where can we actually buy or stream ourselves a copy of it today?
Yeah, so Dreaming in Cursive, The Girl Who Loves Sparklers, I love saying it like that, is my new album. On the West Coast, it was released on Shakti's birthday, which is August 25th. Everywhere else, it came out on August 26th. As I mentioned, this is my healed Black woman music. When I stepped back from the music industry, I was a high school dropout. I went through the entire community college. Do you guys have community college in Canada?
I believe so, yes. I believe so, we do, yeah.
The community college, and then I went to UC Berkeley, and then I studied over in Oxford, and in that I studied in South Africa, and, studying and gaining knowledge to be a better service to children and communities. And once I kind of graduated with my master's of science at Oxford, I felt within my spirit I was ready to come make some more music. And so working with Walt Licker, who, when the Cuts for Luck album came out, was my manager and produced the track on that. With Dreaming in Cursive, it's just me and him. He produced the entire album. And it, to me, was a sacred process. It's still rhyming and it's singing, but it was beautiful. Like, nobody knew what I was doing. I believe in the sacred process of making art, where I know we have social media and everybody's like, look at what I'm doing, look at me. But it's beautiful to just be in the cut and make art. And at the beginning and the end of the day, what being a hip-hop artist is about making dope art and about uplifting our culture. And I really hope that when people listen to the album, they can feel the love and they can feel the affirmation. I almost called the album Love Songs, but the title was already taken. Every song on the album is a love song, whether it's a love song for community, love song for a man, a love song for myself, a love song for my sisters, a love song for our collective children. They're all love songs, and it's released on my own label. I have my own label now called Beautiful Soundworks. Shout out to my business partner, Guy Route, and it's amazing. And we dropped a video for Butter Green Light recently. You can find me and all those things at That Girl Mystic, MYSTIC, on Twitter, same thing on Instagram, same thing on YouTube. I have same thing on Bandcamp, where you can actually buy the album. Vinyl is coming very soon for Cuts for Luck and Scars for Freedom, as well as Dreaming in Cursive. That's about to head into production. So, did I answer the question? That's a new album, and I really, really, really want to make sure that folks understand that I invite you to come and listen to the journey. If you've never heard my voice, if you have no idea who I am, that is a beautiful thing. Start at the beginning, at least of my albums, with Cuts for Luck and Scars for Freedom, and then go to Beautiful Resistance, which is primarily produced by Eli from Living Legends, and then come to Dreaming in Cursive. if you want to go back further, you can find the very first album I was on was The Bones, Life Under Time, Life in Time, the title track. The Bums were Sway and Tech artists when there was still a wake-up show on the local radio here in the Bay Area. And you mentioned the Conscious Daughter stuff, but people can go back and find the stuff with Paris. They can find the stuff with 3 Times Crazy. They can find the stuff with Sugar T. They can find all these things. But in terms of my music, start at the beginning and then move forward with me. And I think what really becomes evident is my journey. I started rhyming when I was 16. I am now 48. I started rhyming when I was a broken girl. I am now a healed woman. And that's a journey. Life is a journey. And so I invite people to come on in and to take that journey with me. And also remember, no matter how sweet it sounds, I am forever a spitter. I am forever an MC. So don't ever get it twisted.
And I gotta say as well, if they haven't heard this brand new album of yours that actually dropped this past summer, they're definitely going to get a taste of it here this evening on the Canadian FM dial, because I got We Are the People Around the World locked and loaded and ready to play immediately after this interview.
Oh, thank you so much for uplifting that and uplifting the album. And you know, I hope people come and watch a Black Love trilogy, which is all going to be all the music videos for it. And you know, look, this is totally independent. There's a lot of artists that we hear from who say I'm independent, but there's a major that's backing them. They call things mixtapes as opposed to calling them albums because it's a classification. They say it's an EP versus an album. There's all these kind of things that are being done. I am a true independent artist. It's me and my business partner and the people who love me and the beautiful with 2 L's community. And, you know, this is a journey to work the album, to build the album, and to uplift the culture and to spread love here in Canada, across the African continent, across India, Australia, Europe, everywhere. We are the people all around the world.
And also, Misty, before we actually part ways, I have to ask, what is next for yourself? Like, is there anything we happen to miss during tonight's broadcast? Anything else you do still want to talk about or promote? What we still got you here live on the Canadian FM dial this evening?
Yeah, I kind of talked about it a bit, mentioned the Black Love trilogy. There are 3 music videos that are coming from Dreaming in Cursive. There's Butter Green Light, which is currently out, co-written and co-directed by myself along with Yellow. Our DP is Kiata Brewer. Ray Love, the legendary Ray Love, plays my lover across all 3 music videos of a Black Love trilogy. But the Black Love trilogy will actually be a short film that comes out in 2023. We still have 2 more videos to go. Still Love and Love Always Love. I told y'all this album is about love, so I really would like to encourage people to keep an eye out for the stuff that's coming there. There's some recipes that are created that go along with the Dreaming in Cursive album. People can also find me at Miss Mandy's, MANDYS Kitchen, because I'm a home chef, and it's just another way of doing love. But there are recipes that connect to the album, so I think that those will go more broadly public soon. And there'll be some other things I'd like people to, particularly, it would be great if you guys already have such a great supportive system of artists, although I'm sure artists would debate that who are actually in Canada. But I've been part of helping to write arts legislation recently with the esteemed Representative Barbara Lee, that is about helping to fund artists and arts organizations in connection with disrupting white supremacy. And so I'd like people to look at that and to look at the power of the arts and what we're doing. And I'm doing some work with Diversify the Stage, which is about diversifying the music industry, not the people in front of it, but the people who are roadies and gaffers and tour managers and just in live events and touring spaces. So, yeah, I don't know. We could talk about a million things, but I know our time is running out and we're a little over. So I would just invite people, come to That Girl Mystic, MYSTIC, across Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, which I don't really use, but it's there, YouTube, Bandcamp, if you want to stream stuff and you want to buy stuff. I hope everybody knows it's beautiful to get thousands and thousands of streams, but also there's a lot that happens when you just go and buy an album for $10 on Bandcamp. It would take me thousands and thousands and thousands of streams to even get that. And I don't do this for the money anyways, but I do have to live, right? So people can find me there, and just please keep an eye for Digital Underground. We are here. Love to all of my Digital Underground family. I let them know that I was going to be on here tonight. So I just invite people to tune in. Who knows what's going to happen? There's all kind of things that I can't talk about yet.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Mystic, thank you so much for just giving us a bit of your time here this evening. I've been a fan for, close to 20 plus years, so just being able to say I interviewed the one and only DU Goddess is such a tremendous honor. Thank you so much.
I'm humbled, and again, my apologies that it took so long, but and for everybody listening in Canada, and you too, if you know, I would love to come up to Canada and do some shows. And then maybe you and I could sit down in person and do an interview. But I would love to come up to Canada. So if anybody listening is a promoter, or if anybody listening works at a university, I'm an educationalist and a community educator, and love to facilitate. When I came up to Regina, I actually facilitated with Indigenous teams in the community, and that's part of what I came for. So I would love to come back to Canada, and we could do this all again.
I gotta say, I definitely agree. So if any promoters that are listening, make sure you email her and get this set up so we can make all this amazing magic happen yet again. Thank you so much again, Mystic, and definitely have yourself a phenomenal evening out there in California.
Thank you, and you too, and to everybody listening, I'm just sending you love, and may you and your families be safe and healthy and blessed.
I gotta say, same to you and yours as well, Mystic. Thank you so much again, and I'm pretty sure we definitely shall talk again soon. But for now, definitely have yourself an amazing night.
Thank you, and you too.